If San Juan County had only one scenic attraction, and that one was its beautiful Rainbow Bridge, it could still lay claim to being one of Utah's most favored areas. Fortunately, it not only does have the Rainbow Bridge, but beyond the rainbow, it has almost countless other scenic attractions waiting to thrill the viewer. From the moment you enter San Juan County, you're in the midst of a vast area of scenic grandeur unexcelled anywhere. From her snow-capped La Salles to the sands of Monument Valley, from Hovenweep to the Colorado River and beyond, from one end of the county to the other, it is just one great big scenic thrill. Here, because nature has been so very generous, the outstanding becomes commonplace, and features that would be set apart and marveled at if they were located in some less fortunate area are simply taken for granted, and visitors often pass by them with scarcely a glance. Even an ordinary sign should never be ignored in San Juan County, for who knows what scenic splendor might be missed. This beautiful alcove with its picturesque window is only a short distance from the main highway. Yet we will venture to say that very few people have ever seen it. Nestled at the base of the Abajos, or Blue Mountains as they are sometimes called, on the rich red soil that produces such bounteous harvests of pinto beans, wheat, and other crops, is the thriving town of Monticello. Small by the usual standards, Monticello serves as the county seat. And now that San Juan has moved into place as Utah's second richest county, a brilliant future is assured. The residents of San Juan are justly proud of their fine courthouse. It may be located in a town of diminutive size, but it serves the largest county in the state. As is the case with nearly every Utah town, its finest building is a church. The Old West lives on in San Juan County. Not the artificial Hollywood kind, but the real West. And moving a herd is merely a routine job. For the cattle raising industry is an important part of the county's economy and contributes a great deal to the overall wealth. Cow hands here are for real, and get along little doggy is more than an idle phrase. Sheep, too, contribute their share to the total economy, and large herds under the care of a picturesque herder and his intelligent dogs are a common sight. Oil is another important asset and pumps its share of wealth into the treasury. Uranium, too, is plentiful, and San Juan has its share of successful mines. This particular one is the Happy Jack out in the White Canyon district. It is typical of many others scattered throughout the county. Not far from the county seat lies another major town called Blanding. It, too, is a thriving town and vies with Monticello for the bulk of the county's business. Its streets are wide and smooth, and it has quite a number of fine shops and business establishments of all kinds. Its rich pioneer heritage is overshadowed only by its glowing future. The building in such a picturesque setting at the end of the street is their high school. Here in Panorama is the little town of Bluff, located on the banks of the San Juan River at its junction with Cottonwood Wash. Both Blanding and Bluff came into being as a result of the San Juan mission of the LDS Church in 1879 and 80. Both were established after the most incredible hardships connected with the famous hole-in-the-rock crossing of the Colorado River. The outstanding landmark at Bluff is a double formation called the Navajo Twins. Directly underneath it is another called Sunbonnet Rock. A short distance outside the town is a weird place called Recapture Pocket. This is San Juan County's answer to Goblin Valley and is replete with the same kind of grotesque formations. The eroded forms, standing alone in the silence, can assume almost any kind of identity, limited only by the scope of your imagination. Only recently opened up to the traveling public is another outstanding area called the Valley of the Gods. It is about midway between Bluff and Mexican Hat and is only slightly less spectacular than Monument Valley. Everyone to their own imagination, but to me, this is an African maid. And this is an old-fashioned Southern girl. While we must admit that the area does resemble Monument Valley, it has a rare charm all of its own, and those who visit it are always richly rewarded. We highly recommend this side trip to anyone who passes through San Juan County. Naturally, there is more to it than we have shown you, for San Juan County is packed so full of scenic thrills that all we can do is show you a few representative scenes of each, and then hope you will come down here and discover the rest of them for yourselves. Because of its strategic location and unusual name, Mexican Hat is probably as well known as any town of its same size anywhere. It is located at the end of the bridge across the San Juan River on the road from Monument Valley to Bluff. Its unusual name is derived from this odd-shaped formation a short distance from the town. The Hat served as a landmark for early travelers in the region, as did the prominent anticline in the background. Erosion has made some of the strata in the anticline look like rick-rack braid. Mexican Hat is also the starting point for scenic boat trips down the San Juan River and was called home by the late Norman Neville's, world-famous river runner. Another spectacular example of erosion is presented by the goosenecks of the San Juan. Here, to progress a single mile as the crow flies, the river has cut a winding, symmetrical gorge 1,500 feet deep and 8 miles in length. That's really taking the long way around. And now we're off to the one spot in San Juan County that is known all over the world, Monument Valley. These stone replicas of a giant pair of mittens are so well known that you don't have to tell anyone where they are. They know. They are as much a trademark of Monument Valley as the colorful Navajo with his flock. It's a moot question which is the most appealing to Monument Valley visitors, the scenery or the Indians. Fortunately, it doesn't have to be answered, for there's plenty of both. A shutterbug in Monument Valley can have a veritable field day, for the Navajo women in their bright velvet dresses make a most interesting and colorful subject to pose against their spectacular surroundings. To the Navajo, his goat herd is his very life. What it doesn't furnish him in food and clothing for himself, it supplies him in extra wool, which can be carded and woven into the highly prized Navajo blankets, which he can then take to the trading post and sell or trade for anything else he might need or want. kids seem to always be in a playful mood and will frequently climb to the top of the hogan and put on a kid's version of I'm the Boss of Bunker Hill. Whether play like that has anything to do with producing a goat with 4 horns or not, we couldn't say. Late in the afternoon or early evening, the herd is brought down across the sand dunes on their way to the water hole. This is one of the most picturesque sights you will ever encounter. Just to see this alone is worth your trip to Monument Valley. These monuments around the totem pole are sacred to the Navajos. If it were not for the constant problem of striving for enough food and water, life in Monument Valley would be very simple. As it is, there never seems to be enough of either. One of the main items in the Navajo diet is fried bread, and the Navajo woman is an expert at making it. The way she does it is simplicity itself. Using any handy pan or basin, she deftly mixes the ingredients and kneads them into a pliable dough. The next step is to take a small piece and pat it with her hands until it is flat and round. Her hands move so swiftly that it is difficult for the eye to follow her movements. Long practice has made her very adept at it. The dough is cooked in a fry pan with melted shortening and produces a flapjack of bread the same size as the fry pan and about 1 inch thick. A short stick serves as a handy tool with which to remove the cakes from the hot grease. It makes the most delicious bread you ever tasted, and needless to say, she has to cook great stacks of it. Prehistoric Indians inhabited all of San Juan County, and the remains of their habitations are scattered far and wide. However, we have elected to show you only a few well-preserved ruins in Hovenweep National Monument to illustrate that phase of San Juan County attractions. These ruins are of the Pueblo type and are remarkable in that the walls of some of them still stand over 20 feet high. One of the buildings is 60 feet long. Archaeologists tell us that the inhabitants built their dwellings and watchtowers at the head of this small canyon to protect their water supply. However, they could not protect it from drought, and when a 24-year drought began in 1276 AD, they had to abandon the Four Corners area. They drifted south to the Rio Grande and Little Colorado River drainages and never returned. One of the best examples of Indian petroglyphs is this one in Indian Creek Canyon near Monticello called Newspaper Rock. It is about the size of one of our modern billboards and is completely covered with writings. If one picture is worth 1,000 words, then this is indeed a veritable newspaper rock. Some of the more ancient writings are barely discernible and are partially obscured by more recent peckings. Unfortunately, it shows some damage by present-day idiotic vandals. Some of the figures indicate they were familiar with such things as the horse, the wheel, and the bow and arrow. Bullseye. Because of the rough terrain, some sections of San Juan County can only be reached by pack horse or Jeep, or some other type of four-wheel drive vehicle. A typical Jeep tour is ready to leave the Kent Frost home in Monticello right now. So let's join it. Kent is a licensed guide and has conducted many tours into the remote areas. His wife, Fern, is one of the country's best women Jeep drivers. And off we go to cover some of the old Mormon trail used by the original settlers of Blanding and Bluff. A wagon trail from Hole in the Rock to the San Juan across some of the roughest country on the face of the earth. Our first glimpse of the old Mormon trail was at Clay Hills Pass. This was a chaotic jumble of multicolored mud hills, and it was difficult to imagine a wagon train coming down through it. It looked completely impassable to us, but there was the evidence. Remnants of the old wagon road were still visible. What to us was a beautiful panorama must have been a heartbreaking sight to them. They were confronted with the task of getting their wagons safely down through it. Next, we visited the ruins of an old Indian fort. It was quite thrilling to prowl around it and try to imagine some of the activity that had taken place there. We wondered what stories these walls could tell if they could only talk. What happened? Did the enemy capture and partially destroy it? Or was it left to time and the elements? In any case, its only inhabitant now was this lizard, who seemed to be as curious about us as we were about the fort. We stopped at the site of old Lake Pagaritz and tried to envision what it used to look like. The strata that had formed the dam was quite noticeable. And then back up the slick rock with the Jeep taking it like a mountain goat. We were still on the old Mormon trail, and we soon found another section where those courageous travelers had chiseled a road out of the solid rock. The complete story of the San Juan mission is full of just such accomplishments. Confronted with terrain that anyone in their right mind would pronounce impassable, they somehow found a way through. They would get their wagons, about 50 of them, down a precipitous place like this, only to encounter another equally as bad or worse. It was just one heartbreaking obstacle after another throughout the entire journey. Never in the history of the West has there been such a chronicle of faith and courage. And this is the famous Hole in the Rock itself. What a place to bring a bunch of wagons down. We came away from the hole with a new respect for the members of the San Juan mission. Theirs was an exceptionally heroic feat. We had all the difficulty we wanted just trying to retrace part of their route, and we were doing it in a modern Jeep. Not only that, but our way was made smoother somewhat because of their passage. One of the almost countless bad stretches they had to negotiate was this place called the Chute. It looked like a completely impassable barrier, and it was really no credit to us that we were able to climb it with our compound gears and four-wheel drive. But with them, it was different. How their horses must have strained and slipped and fought as they inched and yanked their wagons up the cliff. But then, things seemed to be tough all over. This is Owachomo, smallest of the three natural bridges in Natural Bridges National Monument. Next, we have Kachina, which is a little more difficult to reach and photograph because it is deep in the canyon below the rim. And then finally, some 2 miles upstream, Sipapu. Sipapu is also known as Augusta, but the Indian name is much more euphonious, and so it is used now almost exclusively. The monument is reached via Highway 95 west from Blanding. It is a good graded road and much better than the old one, which came over Elk Ridge and between the Bear's Ears. Getting into the Needles area is like traversing the old Mormon Trail. In other words, it is extremely difficult. A four-wheel drive vehicle is a must. However, once you are there, all difficulties of reaching it are quickly forgotten, and you are overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of its beauty. If you had magical powers and set out to build the most beautiful place you could think of, and could juggle the scenery around like chessmen, you still couldn't come up with anything lovelier. The central part of the Needles area is called Chesler Park, and is an almost level circular valley a mile across and completely hemmed in with colorful and picturesque standing rock pinnacles. It is the standing rock pinnacles that give the area its name, the Needles. There are only a few openings in the perimeter, one of which is the north window. I think we could safely say it is one with a view. Among other things, we could see San Juan's beautiful La Salle Mountains, still wearing a halo of snow. The view from the south window was a veritable devil's playground. Our view back at the park, however, was one we shall never forget. Then we traversed a graben fault, or in other words, a place where the terrain had dropped to form a long, narrow valley with sheer walls. On our way to the junction, we tripped lightly, or perhaps I should say, drove carefully down the silver stairs. There below us, we could see the wedding of the two rivers, the Green and the Colorado. The one on the left is the Green River, and the one on the right is the Colorado. Here was an excellent chance to settle the old argument about which was the muddiest. At the junction, the two rivers join to roar their combined way through Cataract Canyon. Cataract divides the Needles area from the land of standing rocks. To get out of the Needles area, we had to negotiate the roughest stretch yet, Elephant Hill. To accomplish it, we had to back part way up on the zig so we would be pointed in the right direction for the zag. It was that steep. It was the loose rocks that gave us the most trouble. I don't know which was the worst, getting up to the top of the hill or getting back down the other side. At least on this side, there was one place on the cliff where there was enough room to back up and turn around. And that, my friends, was a little rough spot called Elephant Hill. Once outside, we got a nice view of one of the six-shooter peaks, and then later, the two of them side by side. Alongside the road was a cute little natural arch with a perfect fitting name, Wooden Shoe Arch. One of the most outstanding scenic attractions in San Juan County, and one which, because of its difficult-to-reach location, has been seen by only a few fortunate people, is its absolutely unique Angel Arch. It can be reached only by the most difficult half-day's travel by four-wheel drive vehicle up a stream bed in the Salt Creek drainage. From downstream, it didn't look like an angel at all. From the proper viewpoint, however, there was the angel as pretty as you please. The folded wing, the bowed head with Dutch-cut hair curled up saucily at the back, the long gown, there she stood demurely, her gaze lowered as if she had just been chastened by the master. Our trip to Angel Arch will conclude our Jeep tour, but before saying goodbye, we want to show you a detached portion of San Juan County, separated from the rest of it by the Colorado River. The detached portion, of course, is Dead Horse Point. Dead Horse Point is not only one of San Juan County's major attractions, it is one of Utah's very best. Tourists from all over the world come here, and we have yet to hear anyone say they were disappointed. Dead Horse Point is a mesa, some half-mile wide, projecting out into the canyon and connected with the mainland by a narrow neck, perhaps some 20 or 30 feet across. It is rumored that a band of wild horses were driven out on the point and died from thirst when they failed to find their way back across the narrow neck. Whether this is true or not doesn't alter the fact that it does add a little glamour to the name. Many people fail to take full advantage of Dead Horse Point and leave after they have seen the view from the neck. It's a shame, too, for the best view is from the very tip of the mesa. These necessarily short views we have shown you of only a few of San Juan County scenic attractions have literally only scratched the surface. So we invite you to come visit San Juan County, Utah in person to see some of the things she has waiting for you beyond the rainbow.